Okay, everybody, let's talk about the Scarab Boss. Hello, everybody, I'm Roadblock, and this is a Raid Shadow Legends video. So, I wanted to start today's video off with just kind of acknowledging the fact that my previous videos in this kind of series were not that great. Just to reiterate, and I tried to make it clear when I recorded those videos, I was just recording 4 videos in a row, all in one night, within an hour, because I was leaving the next day to go away for the 4th of July. And if it's like, well, why did you wait until the last minute to record all of your videos? Because I'm a dummy and I'm a terrible person. But like, no, like all jokes aside, I have a lot going on in my life right now. I'm working very, very hard to be a good husband and father, to be the best that I can be. And it doesn't leave a lot of time for me to record raid videos. Then when you mix in that those particular videos probably needed a little bit more prep than just, I'm going to talk about this boss now, definitely resulted in a lot of missed things, a lot of incorrect things, like recommending a provoker that also brings HP burn. So yeah, there's a lot of different issues that went along in those videos. But today, because I think this boss is one of the more challenging ones than the other two that I have already covered, I really wanted to hone in, and hopefully we can do a better job on that video today. So, you know, ultimately I am sorry about the way that those videos came out, but I was scrambling. It's really no excuse. It's just the truth of what happened. But today we are going to talk about the Scarab Boss. Listen up. I just got a new promo link that you can use to follow along with me on my latest free-to-play adventure and get a free Elenaril, as well as 3 more powerful epics as you level up. Here's how to do it. Log out of Plarium Play and uninstall. Click the link in the description and register with a brand new email. Launch Raid and complete the tutorial. Go to your inbox and claim your first champ. Don't miss out on your chance to get Elenaril right after signing up, as well as Fayne, Uugo, and Tagoar as you progress through Raid. Click on my link right now and let's crush this together. Now, first things first, I want to go over the Scarab Boss, what they do basically. So we'll just grab this one. This isn't the one that I'm going to run for the video's sake, because these can be time consuming and frustrating, this particular boss. So let's do a breakdown of everything. We'll start with the A1. So the A1 is an AoE hit, places decreased attack and decreased speed for 2 turns. It places an extra hit on enemies that have no shield buffs. The extra hit places a provoke debuff for 1 turn. Now, this is the particular ability that will usually get you stuck in a provoke loop, where you get provoked, you don't have a shield, and champion takes their turn without a shield buff, with as an A1, because they're at a provoke. They hit the A1. He has a counter attack, which we'll talk about in a second, places a provoke, and you just keep that cycle going, right? And so you've probably experienced that when you've done this boss and been like, I can't do anything. I feel so helpless right now. For the A2, attacks all enemies, places an extra hit on each enemy buff on the target. Each extra hit steals 1 random buff from enemies that have no shield buffs, and removes 1 random buff from enemies under shield. So steals if they're not under shield, but only removes if they're under shield, which is kind of important to note in a way. Then places True Fear for 1 turn if they have their buff stolen, and a regular fear if they've only had them removed. For the passive, one of the passives, Scarab Boss decreases the damage received according to how much max HP has been destroyed. So basically, if you don't destroy any max HP, your damage is reduced by 90%. That is one of the reasons this boss can be extremely frustrating and take forever if you don't have any way to really destroy that max HP. But we're going to go over a few different options that you can use to go ahead and destroy that. Then lastly, counterattacks when attacked by an enemy that has no shield buff. Again, we already talked about this. You get into these taunt loops if you don't have a way to place shield, if you don't have anybody with a really high resistance, but even that can sometimes lead to some issues. So first thing I want to do is talk about what I consider, and this is my opinion, I consider this to be the easiest strategy to beat this boss, but it is not the easiest strategy to achieve. And those sound counterintuitive, but I want to be clear about what I'm saying. If you use this strategy, it's very easy to do. However, it's hard to get the gear to do it. And I don't mean gear in terms of like having really good gear. I'm talking about just getting the pieces in general. Let's go ahead and talk about what I'm trying to say here. So I think it was Banner Lords that had one. Yes, so Blood Shield Ring, you can see it right here. It looks like these. Now, I know that this is a ring, but it's not only rings that are Blood Shield, and I think that's important to understand. There's also amulets, as you can see behind my bald head here, and banners as well. So the Blood Shield is not a set. The Blood Shield is just 3 accessories. Each can place a shield onto the user. So you can see here, special effect gives wearer shield worth 5% of damage dealt after attacking. Now there's something interesting about the way that reads and how it actually works. Specifically with Scarab, I don't know about all the other areas of the game. I have not tested the other areas of the game, but I know for a fact, because I've used this as my strategy to beat this many times. If you use a Blood Shield Ring against Scarab Boss, the shield gets applied to you before the damage and therefore does not trigger the counter attack mechanic. This is very important to not have you get stuck in this provoke loop if you don't have a shield. So the easiest way is to use a typical team and put 5 pieces of Blood Shield, 1 at least, on each different champion. You will always have a shield up, and therefore you will never engage the counterattack. Now there is a flaw, of course, in this, where you can still take a ton of damage if you don't bring kind of the typical expected kind of team, right? So you still need if you're going with that option, you're still going to need damage mitigation, you're still going to need boss damage and things like that, but it can be done. I've certainly done it. It's probably going to be a longer run, most certainly, but the Blood Shield Ring or Blood Shield accessory, we'll say, option is a decent one. If you don't have 5 pieces across different champions, one thing I would say is you could do something like your support. So your cleanser, your reviver, there's a lot of different options. Them in the Blood Shield Ring, they can sometimes prevent themselves from getting provoked and cleanse that provoke off of everybody else. It's not a guarantee, however, and the damage problem is still there. Scarab King hits pretty hard, and it can be difficult to deal with, especially if you get stuck in one of those loops, even if it's only short-lived. Now, one way you can potentially deal with this loop is to run resistance high enough so that you won't get provoked, but again, we've talked about this in another video, the 3% rule exists, so there is still that possibility that even though you have like a Mithrala, for example, with insanely high resistance, she could still get provoked herself, and then you get put into a mini loop until she loses her own provoke before she can cleanse and shield everybody, and sometimes that is enough time to lose the fight. So there are issues and things to be aware of when it comes to this fight, and I like using a Blood Shield Ring as an option when possible. Now, we previously mentioned that you can destroy the HP of the boss, and if you do that, the damage reduction goes down. So bringing champions that have, if you go to other effects, negative effects, destroy max HP, you can see right here behind me, I've got a list of champions that can destroy HP. Now, Artak is lying to you. Artak destroys his own HP. He is not a terrible option, to be clear, for this boss as a soloer, but he is not going to accomplish it in the way that you might think if you filter by this. But champions that do destroy max HP, Rhodos is a great option. Venomage can do it, but I've always had issues getting enough damage out of Venomage to really make an impact destroying the HP. I think if we look at Venomage's kit, the A1 destroys the target max HP by 75% of the damage inflicted if the enemy's under heal reduction. So first of all, you have to have them be under heal reduction, and you have to hit them with the A1. And the A1's not particularly hitting hard, and I've never really built a nuker Venomage, so I've just never gotten the results versus other champions like Rhodos, for example. I think Dark Elhaine does hit a little bit harder. She is an option. She destroys the target's max HP by 30% of the damage inflicted. So that's an option as well. If you're looking for kind of like early game, lower budget options, one that I've really fallen in love with recently is Heracletes. Yep, so the A3 destroys the max HP of all enemies by 10%, and it's a flat rate, which I love because it's not based on the damage you do. It's just a flat rate of destroying max HP. One of the issues I've had with, especially certain affinities with Rhodos, is weak hits early on, extra attacks out of Rhodos, so he attacks out of a shield, which starts counterattacks. That can be a problem as well. So I really like Heracletes right now, but there is another way to destroy max HP. That is in the form of a set. So the destroy set, you can see I don't carry a lot of it, and you can see there are actually specific champions that have destroy gear on them, being Rhonda and Armiger. Now if we take a look at my Armiger, he's going to be half naked now, simply because I don't use him very much anymore, but Armiger is worth noting, especially in a destroy set. So what does the destroy set do? Well, it destroys enemy max HP by 40% of damage dealt. This is important when you're talking about damage dealt. What makes Armiger a good candidate for this? Well, there's two reasons Armiger is a very, very good champion for Scarab. One, he has turn meter reduction on the A1. We don't want the Scarab to attack if possible, especially with the A2, because it will strip our buffs and it will steal those buffs. So if you have a buff that you don't want to be stolen, strengthen, increase defense, counterattack, you want to minimize the amount of turns that the boss can take. So this turn meter A1 is a good option to reduce the amount of turns overall that the boss takes. Now, I believe he does reduce the amount of turn meter that you steal. We'll go back and take a look at the kit later to confirm that. So you're not going to see like huge results out of this, but it is a viable option. So that's one reason Armiger is so good. But the second reason is because Armiger has an enemy max HP hit. This is very, very valuable to do damage very, very quickly and get value out of the destroy set. If you put the destroy set on like a Rector Drath, for example, and the reason I say Rector Drath is because her A1 is not particularly hard hitting and mostly is reviving with all and buffing with the other abilities on Rector Drath's kit. You're not going to see the results out of that destroy gear that you would see with somebody who does, for example, enemy max HP damage, because you're going to get that 30% of the damage done is going to be a big chunk of the HP of the boss, essentially, is what I'm saying. So just something to note when you're building a team like this. You know, destroy gear is good on a nuker, but it could be best on an enemy max HP champion. Now, could you put destroy gear on nuke for Scarab? Absolutely, you could. You could probably also do the same thing on Coldheart, albeit Coldheart is very, very squishy and will probably die quicker to the Scarab Boss than, say, a defense champion like Armiger. This was one of the most successful strategies I had in the early days of my account, which was putting destroy gear on Armiger, putting him in a blood shield piece, and just letting him boom, 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 just go. Like, and it helped break down the shield very quickly of the boss. When I say shield, I don't mean literal shield. I mean the damage reduction shield. Now, if we look at Scarab again, I just want to confirm. It might be in here, or maybe this boss doesn't reduce turn meter reduction. So if they do, go ahead and post it in the comments, but you can see it's not listed in here in the description. So it is a pretty good strategy then, because we are on the highest difficulty. I don't see anything that says that it gets reduced, but again, I always could be wrong. And I said something too about Heracletes that I want to make sure was right. Yes, so it's just a flat 10%, not 10% of the damage dealt. So, okay. So we've covered the destroy set, we covered blood shield accessories, and we've talked about the importance of destroying HP of the boss. What are some pitfalls to avoid when it comes to Scarab? Well, you want to make sure that you're not bringing counterattack. So when you think about shield champions, one of the first things that you might consider, especially if you're a newer account, might be something along the lines of Wixwell. But Wixwell has a very, very big problem when it comes to this boss, and that is the passive that places counterattack. The first one is protected, but all other counterattack buffs are not protected, and they can be stolen. So while Wixwell is a great champion for bringing a shield and extending that shield, less viable because that counterattack can get stolen, and then you get put in that same loop, but you can no longer get out of it. If counterattack lands on the Scarab, unless you remove that buff from the boss, that boss will do the counterattack thing that you're avoiding by bringing shields, and it won't matter that you have shields, if that makes sense, right? Because that's how you mitigate that mechanic, but when they're under a counterattack, there's no mitigating. He's just going to counterattack every time you take a turn, regardless of shields or any other factors. So, important to note. Likewise, a champion like Valkyrie is going to give you trouble because you're giving the potential for the boss to get counterattack. Now, the argument could be, well, I'm giving a shield and counterattack, so as long as the shield doesn't get taken away, but it can happen. He hits hard. So just things to watch out for. A champion that I kind of like, well, I've got a few different champions that I like when it comes to the Scarab Boss. I do think Ancora is pretty good here. You have a Reviver, you have a Cleanser with a shield, cooldown reduction on the A1, and all battles aura. She can prove to be a pretty good option, and I believe she was a fusion, I want to say, at some point in the past. So is a possibility that a lot of you have her. She's one of the options that I like. I also used UDK a lot back in the day, and I say way back in the day, because he was one of the only champions I had with really big shields. The one downside is the continuous heal can get stolen, of course, so that's not ideal. But overall, I was still able to just get through it and just kind of suffer through a very long fight with continuous heals. Now, another budget option that I want to talk about that I really enjoyed very early on in the game, and you can see she's still level 50, but she was one of the first champions that helped me get through Scarab, is Melga Steel Girdle. So Melga has a shield buff equal to 20% of this champion's max HP. You build her in high HP. She does also bring a continuous heal, which is a problem, but she brings a 2-person revive and puts a shield on those revived allies. She also has a chance of removing one random debuff from a random ally with her A1. So she has one of the unique ways to break the provoke cycle that you might land in, because when she attacks, she might take the provoke off of somebody else and allow them to use an ability that might, maybe it's a cleanser or something, right? So I really liked Melga a lot. In fact, I had Melga and UDK in some of my early teams, and Melga did a great job of, like I said, removing the provoke from Death Knight, for example. Death Knight would then put a big shield up, and then everyone would eventually get free of the provoke cycle. And so then we could regroup, kind of heal up, get, use some abilities to maybe destroy max HP or whatever, and then we can recover. So just some options to consider. Now, probably one of the better champions for the dungeon is going to be Alatreon Blademaster. Now, I understand this is a champion that nobody can get anymore, but I think he was he the fusion No, he was the guaranteed. Yeah, because I grinded my butt off for this guy, and it was a big pain in the butt. So I'm pretty sure that he was the guaranteed, and you had to do champion training, and we all grinded like crazy. But he has a very unique kit. This is kind of irrelevant, but there is a chance of extending buffs, which is good. But you get to place a shield and increase defense, and if it's a boss, the buffs are protected. Likewise, a full cleanse with block debuffs, and if it's a boss, the buff is protected. So that's very, very important because protected buffs can't be stolen by the Scarab, making him a very, very useful ally. So one of the better champions that I've been able to utilize to beat this boss. Now, this is the team that I'm going to go ahead and run. It's my Scarab team. I'm bringing, if you're wondering why Duchess over Ancora, why Duchess over other cleanser revivers, blah blah blah, I've actually just found that Duchess's passive is also helpful to kind of mitigate some of the damage coming out and allow a Latreon Blade Master to kind of do his thing a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this. We're going to get through the waves. The waves take a little bit. You can see I don't have like any crazy wave clear. And then we can kind of show you guys what I'm talking about. So bear with me just a second. Okay, so we've made it to the boss. I want to keep this kind of short and sweet because I am running a little bit long on time here. But we opened with the shield on everybody. Now, I want to be clear before you start typing at me in the comments. I am not telling you to use these champions. I'm not going to post their masteries. I'm not going to post their speeds. I am simply trying to show you the mechanics of the boss. This is a boss video. This is not, hey, build this team to beat this boss. I'm telling you the tools. I'm giving you the mechanics. I'm giving you the strategies that you can use to get through it, and you'll need to figure out how to implement those strategies on your account. Now, for the sake of the video, I am going to let these shields fall off and show you kind of the problem. Also want to show you the damage reduction. That is a newt doing enemy max HP damage for less than 10,000 damage. Likewise, a Crisia doing less damage as well. So I'm not going to go ahead and destroy the HP yet with this ability. I'm going to A1 here, and I'm going to try and get to a point where we can show you the loop. So I won't do the cleanse here. Let these buffs start to fall off. I'm not going to put any other stuff out there. You can see here's where I'm talking about turn meter reduction can come in handy to prevent the boss, obviously, from taking a turn. But mostly all I'm trying to do is kind of cycle through here. And you know what? We're going to pause real quick so I can get to a turn. Okay, so we got to a point now where I am going to go ahead and hit and trigger that counter attack. So now you'll see that hit comes out and we get a provoke over here, right? So we're going to continue to A1. Again, I could cleanse. I could put shields out. We're not doing that. We're trying to deliberately be ineffective here. So that hit is going to... Oh, sorry. That was... What was that? Oh, blood shield ring, I think. Oh, or was it Duchess's A1? I don't know. But there we go. There's the hit. So there comes out the provoke. Obviously, this is a team that's meant to be good against this boss. But there's another... Nope, that wasn't a counterattack. That was turn meter fill. Anyways, point of it is that when you're taking these hits without those shields, it can be a problem. So keeping those shields up is really nice. And what's really funny is either I've got blood shield accessories or I'm getting shields from another ability that I didn't take into consideration when I probably did when I built the team, but I didn't take it into consideration when I made the video. So we are getting a lot of shields coming out. Is it from the A1 here? Places a shield for the champion with the lowest HP. Yeah, so another reason why Duchess is so good, because she brings those shields out and almost stops me from being able to intentionally fail here. Now, let's take a quick pause, and then I'll show you some other things. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and do an enemy max HP hit here. Big chunk of max HP. You see this purple bar goes down, and you'll notice that when we hit him now, the shield is going to have some cracks in it. Well, I don't think we've done enough damage yet to get past some of the reduction. The idea here is that once you see those cracks in this shield, you know that you're going to be doing a lot more damage. So we've kind of already done a big bit of damage. We've gone up a little bit, but he's still reducing it by a good bit. So you will need to kind of cycle through that ability to be able to get it down. So yes, but being able to destroy the HP reduces that bar, reduces that damage reduction. I call it a shield, and you'll be able to get through. So we're going to call this a video. We're going to wrap this up. It's a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, so I want to make sure we're done very quickly. I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Thank you for sticking with me through the holiday weekend. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. Take care.